All right. I am here with Terri Reed, and we're going to record the first of a series of conversations I want to have just with some folks in our congregation that I know are being thoughtful about how they're living these days, as well as thoughtful for our larger community. And I thought it could be an encouragement for us all to hear. So thank you, Terri.
Awesome. Thank you, Joel.
Hey, do you want to start just by telling people a little about who you are and what pre-corona Terri, what life is like?
Oh, well, so my husband Bob and I we are a blended family, and we've been blended for almost 8 years now. We each have two kiddos that we bring to the table, and you were asking me a little bit earlier how that has changed in the last few weeks and months, how that's affecting the going back and forth, and I'm sure that resonates with well, not just myself, but many people in our church family and our church community. So and in our community. So I feel very fortunate because Bob and I can both work from home. Bob's actually been working from home for the last 20 years. And so I feel like he could help coach people to work effectively from home and how to communicate with family members who are now home and not used to being home. That there is work that needs to be done, and even having, a whiteboard saying, hey, Dad, I need you for this, instead of breaking through the door in the middle of a meeting and that sort of thing. I am a life coach, so I can do a lot of this from home, although I really do miss face-to-face stuff because I'm wired that way and I love things. So yeah, this has been different. I have in the past, I've really wrestled with some anxiety, and I think it's really interesting to not only feel what I think God is speaking in these moments to me personally to reassure in the midst of a really uncertain time and an unpredictable time. And I have to say that I love what people are offering, what they already have in their cupboards, so to speak, like you and Melissa have offered, just help with the whole homeschooling in this time when everybody is now looking for ways that how can we get our kids educated and take advantage of this situation when it feels so overwhelming. So I just want to say thanks for using what you already have at your disposal to help others. So.
Thank you. So, how has your life been just disrupted right now before we kind of get into the how you're dealing with all that stuff? What are the disruptions for you?
Well, so three of the kids are in college, and two were living in the areas they were going to school. So one was at U of O in the dorms, and one was in Arizona at Arizona State. Both have moved back. So my kids are staying at their dad's house, and very fortunate. He has a nice big house and they can remain at least 6 feet apart, but also, have that time together. And my stepdaughter will be taking classes online at LCC instead of going in and riding the bus every day. And Jackson is at a school in Washington. So we're fortunate that things are, they've kind of settled. We're just taking things day by day, honestly, because things can change. Restrictions can be lifted or they can be tightened. And I'm holding those things kind of loosely right now. So learning to, if I need my own space, to come up here to the office and get that space. And if I need to connect with people too, I just keep doing my phone calls as somebody comes to mind. I feel like that is God's way of speaking to me and saying, hey, why don't you reach out to so-and-so? At first I was just thinking, oh, I want to connect with them. I want to make sure they know I'm thinking about them and hear how they're doing. But I realized a couple of days ago, God was kind of inviting me into the realization that this might be a process, that, hey, when somebody comes to mind, maybe that's me. Maybe that's my way of saying, not only could you be an encouragement to somebody, maybe they can be an encouragement to you too.
That's very good. So in some of the disruptions and just the unknown of day-to-day stuff and kind of the different living managements that we have to figure out,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that have popped up for you that you realize, okay, this is going to be an interesting, a new challenge for me, just for how you're wired, for the things that might sort of push your buttons or trigger you. I think you're a fairly social person, so I'm thinking about the isolation. How have you? First of all, what if any of those things or other things? Which of those have been sort of the big ones that you feel like God is saying, let's kind of work on this together? And how have you started to navigate some of those things?
Well, yes, you say you think I'm a fairly social person, and that's right. I feel we've had some conversations in our family about just the dynamics with these changes socially, introverts and extroverts. And my stepdaughter is an introvert, and she is kind of loving this time, being able to just be at home and have her own space and connect with people as she wants or needs, via FaceTime or other avenues. Um, I'm very thankful because I feel like God has me on a path. I continue to look at my week and fill it in with phone calls of people. Like if I'm looking at my calendar where I used to be running here and there, and I have a little space, I still fill it in with those phone calls because in my mind, seeing blanks or spots where I know I would have been more active and actively being out in the community, I need to physically or psychologically actually look at my calendar and it has to be purposeful and meaningful to me. So I feel like the Lord is inviting me to take those spaces in my calendar that I would have had instead of having open time and actually putting, hey, I have a phone call here. I've already said I was going to connect with so and so, or I'm going to send an email here. I know I need time to write that and compose that. So I'm actually still blocking my calendar as if I were out and about and connecting with others. And I think for me, as somewhat of an extrovert, more of an ambivert, but somewhat of an extrovert, that really works for me. That's life-giving. I can say, yes, I'm busy, I'm active, I am connecting with others. It's just not the way that I had thought 2020 would be.
Yeah, that's
And
really
for
interesting to
you?
hear. Yeah, I was just sort of comparing notes in my head because normally I homeschool in the mornings, and this is our spring break week, and so we had planned to sort of do some breaks and family things,
Yeah.
and I'm tempted to like fill up my calendar with all these things that have to be done, and I'm like having to be disciplined to leave like gaps in there because we're supposed to have like kind of a break right now, and next
Yeah.
week will be a whole other story for me. But it's just interesting how everybody has to manage it for their own lifestyle. So it's
Yeah.
like being really thoughtful about that.
And I think we all, if we take a little time and we look at this time, we all want to be, I think, busier. If you look at the markets, it's really scary. And Bob has encouraged me, don't look at the markets, and keep your focus. God is in control. He is ahead of this. I believe that. I do believe that we have an opportunity to be really wise, to just practical wisdom in this time is so important. Um, but like you were saying, you have a process, and kind of tweaking the process right now for you is really important. Just because my process works for me, I would encourage people to kind of figure out what is that rhythm in my day right now? Where is the Lord speaking to me, even when I want to fill it up with things or I want to panic about something or I'm worried about something? What's the new rhythm, I think, for right now? Because we will get through this and we are human. And so we have a tendency to look back and go, I wish I would have.
Mm,
Really feel that God is kind of encouraging that, um, be present in
mm,
moments because I'm working on things. Doesn't
mm.
always feel like it. And it is scary. Um, but I love that you have a process. And I would just say, work out the process, you and the Lord, what works for you and what's right for you.
I was reading this morning somebody talking about it, how so much of our anxiety and stress and conflict comes from worrying about past and future as opposed to being present. And so you're talking about being present. What does being present mean for you? How do you do that, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have struggled with worry, and most of our worries, in fact, come from one, we don't get really specific on what we're worried about. We generally say, I'm worried about getting sick, or I'm worried that my loved ones will be okay, or I'm worried about something financial, but we don't ask questions about our worry. And for me, I have had a tendency to get on the hamster wheel with it. And I have a tendency when I can't get off, or I think, okay, give it to God. And without replacing the worrisome thought with something that's hopeful, it's so much easier to climb back on that wheel. And so for me, it's really asking questions about worry. And the biggest question, and I would encourage people, because this has helped me so much, is asking, is it happening? Get really specific with what you're worried about, and is it happening? And you have the camp that says, well, parts of it are, but parts of it aren't. And you can kind of filter those a little bit and let go of the things that aren't currently happening. But then, a lot of times we find, no, that's not happening right now. And I think when we get to that place when we just say, I could worry about the stuff that's not happening, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. But I think asking the question and then replacing the thought with something hopeful, like, I'm worried about my financial future, or I'm worried about my kids, or whatever, and currently stating the truth about your situation, which is, I have more than I need today, or I have more than enough today, or I'm safe today. Some people call it mantras, some people call it affirmations. I kind of call them prayers or whatever works, but for me, they're prayers. They're like, God, I have what I need, I'm safe. And it kind of helps me just actively release it. We know sometimes the scriptures that talk about giving our cares, casting our cares on God, but we don't know how to do that. We intellectually recite the scripture, and then we don't know how to do it. So that's what works for me.
It makes me think. Well, I was just going to say that makes me think of seasons where the Lord's Prayer has been really meaningful to me, where just making that a regular, daily, multiple times a day practice, and kind of as you walk through the different levels of that prayer, sort of thinking globally and then personally, and then working through just basic needs, and then into forgiveness, and then into a more hopeful attitude, finding places to pause in all of that and just be there in that moment with whatever God is sort of wanting to help you get out of. And that prayer is so beautiful. No wonder it's been used for Christians for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it is a mantra-like thing. It's the kind of thing that you can just say over and over and over, give us this day our daily bread. That is, how we'll never get away from that. And there are times like this where we got to recognize God is giving us our daily bread, and that's enough for today,
Yeah.
Thanks for that reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
What about, so I get to be on your emails that you send out to the prayer team, and I've loved reading those encouragements and thoughts and seeing some things that come
You're
back.
so great.
But what would you have in terms of just encouragement for us as a community right now? Thinking, we're talking on a personal level, now I'm thinking sort of on a communal level. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? I would just love to give you some room to talk here about.
Well, I kind of start to laugh because I reached out to you and I brought up a certain short passage, right? Widow and the oil, that keeps coming to mind right now in a really practical way. And I was thinking the other day, I just had this thought, and this is kind of how I think, is that the Lord speaking to me? Is that just a creative thought? But I do feel like, of course, I'm going to give him credit for it because I do believe it's God. But I was thinking, gosh, the toilet paper that we bought from Costco a month ago has sure lasted a long time. Now, hear me out. I know we're talking about toilet paper, but I started thinking of and looking around and seeing these simple household items that just seem like they're lasting a lot longer than they have. And yes, I am now practicing better conservation and those things in this time, which I think we all need to do, right? That's just wise. We want to take care of things. But I started thinking, Lord, is this something that you're actually doing for us? This is part of your just love for us and your provision for us in a way that we can look out for our household needs, but also for the needs of others, like the Bible says. We get overwhelmed to know where to start, I think, sometimes. And for me, I start thinking, oh, I could do that. And that feels really great. But oh, what about maybe I need to go to the store and I need to buy all these things, or maybe I need to send money over here because I don't. And I end up doing nothing. Because there's just so much need. And I feel like the Lord was saying, okay, let's break it down in this time. It's pretty simple. It can be pretty simple. And if there's something that resonates with you or touches your heart and you feel led to give in a certain way, I encourage you to do it. I think that's beautiful generosity. But if you're overwhelmed, like I tend to be about where do I start, I think practically speaking, prayer is so important, whether you pray for others or whether you're in need of prayer. We have a great prayer team. Our prayer team is not huge, but I can't say enough about the people on the team. They are full of love. They are full of inspiration from God. They are faithful and they love to bring requests before God. And I encourage people to reach out if you do need prayer. We're trying to make it streamlined so that people can reach out and just ask for prayer or even mention praise reports. I think that's so important. You know, we talk about the negativity of the news, but man, it sure is encouraging when we have a great breakthrough or something. So I would say prayer. I would say just practice, just honoring life. So I know that this is really tough for us to be apart from people at times, and we talk about isolation, but there's no need to lean into isolation as much as just we're distanced, but we're not isolated. We have so much technology. I mean, praise God for the things that we have right now. I look at the kids and I know that they're bored. At times they're bored. They never expected to be stuck at home. And I feel bad for them because I would be going nuts at times. They have so much technology. They can see their friends. They can talk with them. They can play music together. They can play games together, even if they're not right in front of each other. So we have so much to be thankful for in that regards. And then practically speaking, even more practically, look for what you have in your cupboard. You don't have to race off and buy a bunch of stuff and try and figure out how to get it to people who need it. That is a wonderful thing to do. I think that is incredible. But if you just look and see, hey, I have more than enough right now. I have, I've used this before, but I have 3 cans of chili. Does anybody need chili? Or my goodness, I bought that case of mac and cheese at Costco and it's been sitting there. I've got like 18 boxes. Does anybody need? Ask people what they need. Ask neighbors. Reach out to your neighbors and say, hey, is there anything that I can help you with? But then be honorable and generous enough to follow through if there's something that you have in your hand to give. I again bring up the homeschooling. You have that capacity. You have that knowledge, Joel, and you and Melissa have done that. And I just think it's such a beautiful gift that you have to offer others right now. So really look, what do you have in your possession to help with practically? I was talking about the scripture in 2 Kings 4:7, which is talking about the widow and the oil. And just to break it down, she loses her husband, who had been one of the sons of the prophets. And so Elisha is the prophet in the region at the time. And what does she do? She cries out to the man of God, because that's what they do in order to find out or get help from God. They cry out to the one who's closest to God, right? Well, we have direct connection with God all the time. So we ask God for what we need. We just say, I'm in need of this. I need you to take care of this bill. I need you to heal my family member. I'm not feeling so well right now. I'm tired. I need strength. Asking God for help, practically speaking. And then what does Elisha do? He says, she says, hey, can you help me? She tries to qualify it and say, hey, my husband was a really good guy before God. We're deserving, my sons and I, but we have this credit problem and the creditors are coming. They're going to sell my sons as slaves. And so he goes, what can I do for you? So he just says, what do you need? And she tells him. And so he says, hey, what do you have in your house? And she goes, nothing. Oh, I have a little oil. And so he goes, okay, go to all your neighbors and ask for jars and bowls, as many as you can get. Just ask for help. And I think that is so hard. God is teaching me right now that I have a really hard time asking. I have a hard time asking for help, even in the little things. And part of it is my focus is on the worry and the what if. But I think sometimes God just says, hey, just reach out to somebody. I didn't know how to use Zoom. And my friend helped me last night. I love it. It's a great tool. But I didn't know how. And I had to say, I don't know how to use it. So just practically speaking, just ask for what you need. And then, of course, the story ends where she brings everything into the house. Elisha says, take your sons and all the jars into your house and lock the door, which is so funny because I think, gosh, that's kind of timely in this season right now. Go home, lock the door, stay there. And then just begin pouring the oil into all the jars and fill all of them until you're done, until they're full. And she does. And of course, she asks her son finally, bring me another jar. And he says, they're done. And then the oil dried up. So she was able to sell the oil, pay her creditors, and live on the rest. So it was the abundance of God. And I say all that to just say, to cry out for God, to either ask for help or be willing to give what we have in the moment. And then to do just the practical things. Do, if you feel like God is nudging you to do something, to just do it, because it's never out of a heavy hand or a heavy fist. It's always God inviting us to do something, inviting us into his miraculous work or whatever. So it's just good. It's just practically speaking. And one more thing I'll say, I know I've probably gone too long. Did you have anything to add to that, Joel?
No, you're good.
Okay. One more thing I wanted to say, because I thought this was such a very cool thing that God would give me. So I was thinking today about our adversary. And we definitely have an adversary right now. And I just, as I look around and I reach out to people, I am amazed when I think I want to encourage this person, and they come back and they encourage me and they say, we're good. We're just taking the time. We're slowing down. We're breathing. We're standing on those encouraging scriptures that we have and everything. And I look around and I just got this picture. I was like, gosh, it seems like our adversary is kind of dumbfounded right now. Like, what is going on with everything that's going on and all the scary news and all the panic that is going on? But there are these people that are coming together. This should be dividing people, and yet all these people are coming together and asking if needs are being met and if they can meet needs or how they can help. And we're coming together and our prayers are coming together and coming before God. And I was like, yeah, what is that picture of? And I thought, it's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's that picture of the Grinch after stealing the trees and stealing the presents. And he rides back up the mountain and he's sitting up there and he's just like evil and gleeful and everything. And he's got this look on his face. And all of a sudden he's like, why do I hear singing? These people are singing. They've come together and they're what I intended didn't work out for me. And I love that. I love how God gives me that picture because it delights me, for one. But I think just recognizing it, that we will get through this, and we will get through this together. And the more we reach out and just use what we have, we're going to see some pretty amazing things, and it's all for God's glory. But it will bless people, and I'm encouraged by that.
That's beautiful. Terry, thank you so much for sharing all of that and for thinking on
Absolutely.
behalf of our community and praying. And um, I know that you have also made yourself available in whatever way you can just to talk with people who need help so they can reach out
Yeah.
to the church and we can help connect you to them. But thank you so much for sharing your life, your process with us, and also just being willing to be a voice of encouragement in an interesting time.
Yes, for
Uh,
sure. Thank you so much, Joel. I really appreciate you doing this. I think this is life-giving. So
Wonderful.
I will just say one more time, if people have prayer requests that they want to send into the church, I know that's being kind of set up again, but I can send the contact info, and if we can make sure that that's on the website and all set up, that would be great. We'd love to hear from people. We'd love to intercede and see what God does, because it's going to be amazing.
Great. Thank you, Terry. Um, and thanks everybody for watching. I hope this was encouraging to you. And if there are topics or things that you'd like to hear other people talk about or to share about, please feel free to reach out through the website and let me know. Oh, and the link to the prayer team is also on the website if you'd like to submit prayer requests or just reports of good things that are happening. We'd love to share with those, in those with you as well. So we'll be back before too long with another conversation. Thanks again, Terry, and we'll see everybody soon.